Only Eleanor did not come. Mrs. Spencer's reproaches died on her lips. Her air of dignified injury began to weaken. And when at last the prodigal did appear, there was obviously something wrong. Not that she did not give an excellent performance. "Sorry, my dears," she said in her light voice. "Some awful man here about the blackout. Have you had lunch?" "We had trays up here," her mother said, the injury returning. "I do think, Eleanor—" But Eleanor was not listening. She glanced around the luxurious apartment, a boudoir and 2 bedrooms, and jerking off her hat, ran a hand over her shining blonde hair. Carol, watching her and still puzzled, wondered how she had kept her beauty. 32, she thought, and she doesn't look as old as I do. Or does she? Certainly Eleanor was looking tired and harassed, and perhaps, if such a thing were possible, rather frightened. "I hope you will be comfortable," she was saying. "It's the most awful rotten luck, but I have to go to New York tomorrow. In this heat, too. Isn't it dreadful?" Mrs. Spencer stared at her. "I do think, Eleanor—" she began again. "I know, my dear," Eleanor said. "It's sickening, but I have to go. We're giving a dinner next week, and my dress has to be fitted on Saturday. I have to have one. I'm in rags." Carol smiled faintly. Eleanor in rags, with a dressing room lined with closets filled with exquisite clothes, was not even a figure of speech. "Where will you stay?" she asked. "Your apartment's closed, isn't it? I thought Howard was at his club." "I'll find some place," Eleanor said, still airily. "Maybe the Colony Club. Howard's not coming out this weekend. He's playing golf on Saturday at Piping Rock." Mrs. Spencer had lapsed into indignant silence. Eleanor did not look at her. She was really not looking at anyone. "I have a shocking headache," she said, putting her hand with its huge square-cut diamond to her head. "Do you mind if I lie down for a while? Do what you like, of course." "Just what would you propose?" Carol said, amused. "I can curl up with a book, but what about Mother?" Once more, however, she realized that her words had not penetrated Eleanor's mind. Behind her lovely face, something was happening. It was as if her speech was following a pattern already cut and prepared when she entered the room. "Dinner's at 8, she said abruptly. "I'll see you then." "I do think—" Mrs. Spencer began again, but Eleanor had already gone, the door closing behind her. In spite of her bewilderment, Carol laughed. Then, feeling repentant, she went over and kissed her mother's cheek. "Well, we're here," she said cheerfully. "Don't bother about Eleanor. Maybe she has something on her mind." Mrs. Spencer caught her arm almost wildly. "Carol, do you think Howard is being unfaithful?" "He may have a pretty lady somewhere," Carol said, "but Eleanor wouldn't mind, of course, unless it got out." This picture of modern marriage proving too much for her, Mrs. Spencer closed her eyes. "I think I'll have some digitalis," she said faintly. Eleanor left the next day looking as though she had not slept, and piling her car with the numberless bags without which she never moved. She had not appeared at dinner the night before, sending word she still had a headache, and as she left shortly after lunch, her mother's grievance continued. Eleanor's plan, it appeared, was to drive herself to Providence, leave her car there, and take a train to New York. "That leaves the limousine for you," she explained. "You can use it all you like." Howard laid in plenty of gas. Mrs. Spencer said nothing resentfully, but Eleanor did not notice. She talked on feverishly during lunch. Greg's citation, the probability of his marriage to Virginia Demarest before he went back, the dress for which she was to be fitted, and which was unlike her, she smoked fairly steadily through the meal. Carol was uneasy, and when Eleanor went upstairs for her coat and hat, she followed her. Eleanor was at the safe in her bedroom. She started somewhat. "Money for the trip," she said lightly. "What's the matter with you, Carol? You look ghastly." "I thought you did," Carol said bluntly. "Nonsense, I'm all right. See here, Carol, why not stay here for a while? Greg won't go to Maine. He has other things on his mind, and it only reminds you of things you'd better forget." "I can manage," Carol said rather dryly. "I can't change the plans now. It's too late. Let the servants go up alone. Lucy Norton will be there, won't she?" There seemed a certain insistence in Eleanor's voice. "I'm leaving Sunday," she said. "It's too late to change." She watched Eleanor at her dressing table, laden with the gold toilet things, the jars and perfume bottles which were as much a part of her as her carefully darkened eyebrows. She was running a brush over the eyebrows now, but the line was not too even. Eleanor's hands were shaking. And that is the end of chapter 1 of The Yellow Room by Mary Roberts Rinehart.